I'd say as far as the anime watching community goes, I'm pretty plugged in. I know when a show drops and how hyped up it gets, and I know when trends are going around and what kind of videos I gravitate towards watching. And recently, I've been seeing a lot of videos about character development, and it got me thinking about my favorite characters and just how much they've changed. Ladies and gentlemen, the character I want to share with y'all today has probably the most insane character development I've ever seen. Yeah, that's with guys like Eren Yeager, Emiya Kiritsugu, and Light Yagami running around. But before I can make your balls itch with excitement for my super duper awesome storytelling, I need to explain character development and why it's a very overappreciated concept. There are a few ideas I need to beat into your head real quick. Number 1, a character that doesn't develop is not worse or better than a character that does develop. Exhibit A, Jotaro. This guy does not change pretty much at all over the entire story of part 3, and yet this character is awesome. Everybody who watches JoJo's loves Jotaro. He makes for some of the best fights and big brain plays in anime. Exhibit B, Splitter. This guy changes a lot over the episodes of My Hero. He was a common crook after joining the Villain Association. He has changed. He has embraced camaraderie and works towards the goals of his association. He has become much more noble, even though he's a villain. But nobody gives a shit, because this guy is absolutely, positively useless to the story. He hasn't done jack diddly dick. He has no ability other than looking like a Walmart Ninja Turtle. And he is not enjoyable when he's on screen. Imagine if you bought tickets to see the Bucks play, and Giannis, Fish Middleton, and Dame Dalla are all not playing that night, so you get to watch Thanasis jiggle his big Greek booty up and down the court for 48 minutes, shooting 3% from the field. That's what it's like watching this scrub. Nobody cares that he's on the team, and he shouldn't be because he's ass. Character development is also wildly misunderstood, because characters can have a conviction or important moral code and completely ruin it, and people will eat that shit up and say, "Oh my god, this resonated with me so much. I am literally just like this character. This is incredible character development." Exhibit A, Light Yagami. This kid was a typical teenager with some good grades, a kind demeanor, and large aspirations, until he discovered a book. If you've watched Death Note, you know that some shit goes down. He kills some people, and the chokehold of power and control changes his views on the world. And just what can he do? A young motherfucker ponders his existence in the vast expanse of the universe and comes to the self-realization that he is a god. If you compare the teenager I described at the beginning of the story and the egotistical, tyrannical murderer with a god complex at the end of the story, it is very obvious that this character has changed. He has developed, but he didn't get any better. If we keep it 100, this character became more childish and self-centered. The character shrunk instead of growing. So is this bad character development? Hell no. I'll chop it up to this. As long as your story is entertaining and your characters are a necessity for that story to move along, then it really doesn't matter how or if your characters change. People will eat that shit up like it's fentanyl in LA. So we have this character named Kaiji. He is, for all inclusive purposes, a massive loser. He doesn't have a job, he steals the emblems off of BMWs, and he lives a delinquent lifestyle. He's lazy. Kaiji becomes resentful with his uneventful lifestyle, so he lashes out with the small amounts of money he has on gambling and cheap liquor. Until a certain man shows up at his door with some news. Kaiji has to pay off some debt. He owes 3 million yen, or 5 big ones USD, and without the funding to pay it, the loan shark gives an offer. Go on a cruise in which you can make 10 to 20 million yen on top of your debts, or you could fuck up and go into even worse debt than you were before. And on top of the debt that isn't cleared, you must do multiple years of slave labor for this crime boss, because this cruise is all about gambling. Very, very high stakes gambling. With no other choice, Kaiji takes the offer and goes on the cruise. This is what this show is all about. High stakes gambling and clearing the debt that Kaiji owes to this shady, greasy company. In the show, Kaiji goes on a series of these games in which he has to clear his debt, and the stakes become higher and higher each time. But during all of this, behind the scenes, someone is watching. The owner of this company is a sick old fucker. He likes watching people in misery, and so he gathers rich assholes from all around the world to watch the games he puts people like Kaiji through. And if you've caught on by now, you probably realize that this sounds an awful lot like a very popular Korean live-action show. That's right, Mr. Beast's Squid Game is pretty much the same fucking show. And after doing some digging, I found that Squid Game is actually based off of the manga series of Kaiji. They stole Kaiji's whole flow. So if you watched Squid Game and thought, hey, this idea is pretty awesome, then give Kaiji a shot, but that's not the reason I'm here. I'm here to tell you guys why Kaiji is one of my favorite characters of all time. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. Development. Once Kaiji has entered the high-stakes gambling criminal underworld, he has to learn the ropes, otherwise he'll be thrown back into slave labor. And I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll keep this short. Kaiji is one of very few morally good characters participating in this gambling. 99% of the characters in this show are oily, low-life suckers that will do anything to save their own hide. And after having watched the show, I've seen people push others off buildings, scam people out of freedom, abandon so-called friends for a few bucks. That's the rules of this world. It's either play or get played. And at the beginning of the story, our boy Kaiji gets played a lot because he is naive. He thinks he can make friends that will help him out. He can play honestly, trust that other players won't cheat. But everyone else in this game has the same amount of stakes and pressure as Kaiji. Most of the guys around him are probably ex-cons, delinquents, and thugs, just like himself. And Kaiji soon learns that his honesty will only be taken advantage of, so he gets betrayed a few times. And this is where the development kicks in, because Kaiji loses everything on multiple occasions, but he perseveres. And this is not the typical Sheldon kind of perseverance that we see all the time with things like the power of friendship, random power-ups, and plot armor. No, Kaiji doesn't have any superpowers or friends that he can trust. All he has is his wits, and with that alone, I have seen this motherfucker come back from the darkest of depths. I bet he could be sent to hell and find a way back. That's how much hope and perseverance this guy has. At a certain point in the story, Kaiji becomes disgusted with the people he's surrounded with, and he doesn't want to wager these high stakes anymore. That's right, Kaiji decides to pay off the debt by getting a job. Remember, this guy's a delinquent, so the best job he's gonna get is working at a gas station. But in Kaiji's mind, it's better than participating in games where people's lives are spent for others' entertainment. That is, until one of Kaiji's buddies from work says he's gonna go do the games again, because working some shit job like this for the rest of your life, paying off debts, is not a life worth living. So he wagers life or death for the chance at a new opportunity. And Kaiji, while he is disgusted with these games, he comes to the realization that working off debt honestly is a shitty life not worth living. On top of that, Kaiji is a veteran at these games now. He knows not to trust others, and that the best way to win is to cheat. Probably my favorite part of this show is the many creative ways Kaiji has to bend the rules of these games and find ways to cheat. And another part that makes these cheats so awesome is that everything about these games is explained super thoroughly. For example, there's a shitload of time spent explaining rock, paper, scissors, one of the simplest games of all time. All of the possible strategies and ideas how one could cheat, and it is set up for some seriously big brain plays. Watching Kaiji is like watching a white chocolate mixtape. This guy's ideas are insane. During one of these games, Kaiji has to rig a ball machine called the Bog. This thing is the nicest and most cheat-proof gambling machine ever created, but Kaiji finds a way. He not only tilts the floor beneath the machine to rig it, but he also tilts the entire fucking building that the machine is in so that it works differently. If Kaiji was in a video game, he would be in God mode while everybody else is in survival mode. However, none of these mischievous antics would be possible if it wasn't for the plotting and scheming that this genius came up with. Suspense is most commonly used in the horror genre, but Kaiji uses it in an expert way. The term of sitting on the edge of your seat is taken to a new level with the show. I can't express how sweaty my clothes got after a single episode of Kaiji. I can't explain the amount of times I shit myself watching the show. The sums of these quantities are as numerous as there are stars in the sky. There are three things that makes this show's suspense so very real. Number one, the Zawa Zawa. Now, if you're familiar with what I'm talking about, it's a lot like the menacing symbol from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It adds an uneasiness to the scene, but the Zawa Zawa is also a noise and a symbol. So it's like a creepy whispering in your ear while you watch a suspenseful scene. Number two, the narrator. This guy needs to get paid the absolute max. He puts in 110% every time he speaks. And with this show being an anime, you know there are already going to be exaggerated expressions on the characters' faces. There will be music in the background, and this narrator climaxes that suspense with some of the most inspiring vocal performances we've heard since Michael Jackson. Number three, the stakes. In this anime, people wager millions of dollars. They wager their ears, their fingers, even their own lives. And when you see a character put that shit on the line, you envision yourself in their shoes, and it makes everything so much more costly. Listen, I found a video that perfectly encapsulates the sawa, the narration, and the stakes. Watch this.
企んでやがるのか。何かとんでもねえこと。正気の沙汰とも思えない驚愕の50万7千全てをかけたまさに4号組マックスの針マックスマックスMax!
Kaiji is unlike any anime I've ever seen. I give it the highest of regards. You should definitely watch it. I'd say it has the big brain plays of Death Note and the plot twists of Attack on Titan. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. So be a real one and check out this gangsta shit.